From teddy boys to swinging London, the mods were the British subculture that thrust the past into the future. Ready to leave austerity and conformity behind, they embraced all things modern. Modern dress, modern music, modern transportation, and they made it their own. In 1964, the world was on the brink of a revolution, and the mods were at the forefront of it all. But what exactly made the mods such a pivotal piece of cultural history, and how is their impact still felt today? And what about the mod revival of the 1970s and 80s? How did a movement rooted in smart suits and scooters make a comeback amidst punk rock's safety pins and chains and new wave's pop synths? And what drove a new generation to embrace the fashion, energy and spirit of a scene that had once defined a different era? We have much to learn from the mods' love of music, fashion, freedom and how they embrace the moment. Join us as we uncover the layers of the subculture that redefine society and explore the legendary musicians behind this transformative movement. The mods didn't just reflect the culture, but reshaped it entirely. Can we ever recreate their freewheeling creative way of life? Let's find out as we explore how the mods changed society forever.
We were very fortunate that everything was possible in those days. And we were fearless. Most of our parents were shell-shocked. So they never talked about the war. There was no communication. So you just had to make your own way. And we made terrible mistakes, but we tried. And I think creatively and artistically, we were very successful.
The mod generation grew up in post-war Britain, often playing and exploring around bomb sites that remained scattered throughout London. Their parents had lived through the harrowing experiences of World War II, enduring air raids, rations, and a disrupted way of life. And prior to that, their grandparents had not only witnessed the devastation of World War II, but also the horrors of World War I. This legacy of conflict left a deep imprint on British society, instilling resilience but also an atmosphere of austerity. Conformity, austerity and poverty ruled the day. By the time the mods came of age in the 1950s, they were ready to cast off the shadows of the past. Rejecting what their parents held on to for stability, mods embraced modernity, style and a sense of rebellion. They sought to break free from the grey, war-scarred streets of their childhood and build an identity rooted in optimism, colour, and an urban, cosmopolitan outlook that felt light years away from the burdens their parents and grandparents had carried. The Teddy Boys, who came first with their distinctive Edwardian-style suits, quiffed hairstyles, and love for early rock and roll, were among the first British youth subcultures to emerge in the 1950s. As the 1950s progressed, many Teddy Boys evolved into rockers or leather boys, embracing a harder, more rebellious image. Influenced by American biker culture, they traded in their draped coats and crepe-soled shoes for leather jackets, jeans, and heavy boots. Motorcycles became central to their identity, symbolizing freedom and defiance. They embraced the sounds of American artists like Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Gene Vincent, whose energetic performances and raw driving rhythms reflected the rebellion and excitement that rockers sought. The mods, on the other hand, emerged as a new wave of youth culture beginning in 1958, partly in response to the Teddy Boys and later the rockers. The mods took a different direction, aiming for a more sophisticated, modern look. Mods embraced Italian fashion, favouring slim-cut suits, button-down shirts and sleek shoes, which contrasted with the Ted's Edwardian-inspired outfits.
Essentially, people think the Beatles were pop, but in actual fact they came from a bohemian background where they had a skiffle group, and they were called the Quarrymen. And they were just playing acoustic guitars. And Lonnie Donegan had 22 #1 records, and you couldn't call them pop, and you couldn't call them folk, you couldn't call them jazz or blues, you called them skiffle.
Their clothing was about crafting an image that was smart and uniquely theirs, reflecting their desire to stand out in a world that often seemed drab and uniform. Musically, mods originally gravitated more towards jazz and R&B, attempting to redefine themselves in a more polished light than the music that had defined the Teds. The mods' affinity for scooters also set them apart, as they saw Vespa and Lambretta scooters as stylish, urban and practical. In many ways, the mods were a reaction against the Teds, some of which had been involved in riots and other menacing behaviour. Mods were aspiring to a cleaner, more cosmopolitan lifestyle that embraced a European flair and emphasized a forward-thinking outlook, moving beyond the 1950s rock and roll nostalgia that the Teds represented. For a period, the rockers ruled the roads and towns across Britain, creating a dominant and rugged presence with their motorcycles, leather jackets, and rebellious attitude. Often spotted on powerful bikes like Triumphs and Nortons, they roared through the streets, taking over highways and congregating at roadside cafes such as the iconic Ace Cafe in London. Their style was raw, and their gatherings at cafes and clubs became hubs of camaraderie and a shared defiance against societal norms. With their distinctive look and culture, the rockers symbolized a kind of freedom that was both thrilling and intimidating to the more traditional society around them. For a time, they were the undisputed kings of the streets, their roaring engines a soundtrack to an era of unbridled independence and rebellion. But soon, a new group was starting to emerge on the streets of London. The Modernists, later known simply as the Mods. Unlike the Teddy Boys, many of whom had served in the military through compulsory national service, this post-war generation was free from such obligations. The Mods took advantage of this newfound freedom to shape their own identity, unburdened by the same ties to tradition. They were young, urban, and driven by a desire to look forward rather than back. They embraced a sleek European-inspired style that favored scooters, setting themselves apart from the rockers' aesthetic. As they gathered in clubs to dance to American R&B, jazz, and ska, the Mods cultivated a lifestyle centered around fashion, music, and a distinctly modern outlook that resonated with their sense of breaking away from the past. With no need for military service, the Mods represented a shift towards a more pleasure-driven culture, celebrating style, nightlife, and a uniquely cosmopolitan vision for Britain's youth. The Mods benefited from the post-war economic boom that began to improve the British economy in the late 1950s and early 1960s. As job opportunities expanded and wages rose, young people had more disposable income than their parents had ever experienced. Unlike the previous generation, which had been shaped by wartime austerity, the Mods were free to spend their earnings on fashion, music, and leisure. They channeled this newfound wealth into cultivating a stylish, polished look and meticulously accessorized scooters, becoming symbols of their success and status. This era of relative prosperity allowed Mods to define themselves through consumerism, embracing the latest trends and creating a distinct culture around their spending habits. The improved job market gave them the means to regularly attend nightclubs, buy records, and travel, establishing a lifestyle that celebrated both personal freedom and the ability to indulge in life's pleasures. The Mods lived for the day. But you can give them to the birds and bees. Females played a crucial role in the Mod subculture, bringing their own style, energy, and influence to a movement that was originally male-dominated. Young women embraced the Mod fashion with sophisticated, androgynous looks that broke away from traditional femininity. Think sharp, tailored blazers, pants and skirts. Many women adopted the same clean, geometric styles as their male counterparts, favoring short hairstyles, dramatic eyeliner, and modern attire. They were equally involved in the music scene, dancing to jazz, R&B, and British rock bands in clubs across London. Female Mods were not just passive participants, but were actively shaping the movement's aesthetics, disregarding their parents' social boundaries around gender roles. They reveled in independence and freedom. Their involvement gave the Mod subculture a unique, progressive edge, highlighting a new kind of empowered, fashion-forward woman who was as much a part of the scene as the men. The early Mods were drawn to a dynamic mix of music that included the infectious dance rhythms of the twist, the sophisticated sounds of modern jazz, and the raw energy of American R&B. This eclectic musical taste set them apart as they frequented clubs to dance to these diverse styles, cultivating a scene that was both stylish and vibrant with music at its core.
She knows how to shake that thing all right now. Where the people are so gay, twisting the night away. The groovy high-fi, I say yeah, yeah. That's what I say yeah, yeah. What you do with your
your time apart from dancing and going up the West End? Are you interested in anything else?
No. All I think of is the West End and dance halls and girls.
That bring in £10 to £20 a week. I asked mod girls who'd left school at 15 if they wished they'd stayed there longer.
Yes.
You all do?
Yes.
Why didn't you then?
I got fed up with school and just didn't want to stay. I wanted to go to work, but you know, afterwards you realise that you should have stayed at school and you've been better off.
Did you learn a lot at school?
Well, I went to two schools. I went to a girls' school where I did learn something, but when I went to another school, I didn't learn anything at all.
Whose fault was that, do you think?
The school.
Whose fault was it you didn't?
Well, we went to the same school, and I'd say it was the school. The classes were too big, the teachers were only about 19, 20. They couldn't do nothing with us, control us, or we just used to walk out when we wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame the school, can you?
Yes, you can.
Oh, you can't. It's up to
There was nobody to keep
yourselves.
us under control. I mean, we didn't realise then. If we'd realised then, I mean, I would have learned something.
Didn't your parents tell you it was important to stay in school?
Well, they wanted me to go out and get money, really.
No, my mum and dad wanted me to stay on, but I didn't want to.
Better off, or rich, richer, or more intelligent, or what?
Well, I wouldn't say we're richer. I think the mentality is completely different. I mean, you see most of these mods, they leave school at 15, straight into some unskilled job, and they never get anywhere in it, and just so they got a bit of money to spend on clothes, on a hairdryer, and...
Why should they be more bored than you are?
Well, they've got nothing to do, have they? I mean, if anything goes wrong with their bikes or their machines, they just don't do it themselves, put it into someone else, one of the garages to get it done there. But if anything goes wrong with one of our bikes, we do it ourselves.
Apart from motorbikes and boys which go together, what else are you interested in?
Well, we go bowling, pictures, dance halls, motorcycle meetings when they're on.
I said na 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 na.
By 1963, the mods had moved firmly into the mainstream, with their sharp fashion and love for soul and R&B music becoming widely popular across Britain. No longer an underground movement, the mod style and lifestyle began to influence broader culture, from fashion magazines to popular music, marking a shift as mods became icons of British youth culture. The mods were meticulous about their style, often sketching out exactly how they wanted their outfits to look and bringing these designs to their tailors. This allowed them to have custom-made clothing that perfectly fit their vision, showcasing their commitment to a sharp, individualized look that set them apart from the mainstream. They were renowned for their impeccable taste in suits, favoring tailored pieces with sharp, narrow lapels and often a distinctive ticket pocket on the jacket. Every aspect of their look was meticulously considered. From the fit of the suit to the exact positioning of the pocket, nothing was left to chance. Mods took great pride in presenting a polished appearance, often spending a significant portion of their earnings on clothing to ensure their style was flawless. Their suits, typically Italian-inspired and slim-fitting, conveyed an air of sophistication and modernity that set them apart from the more rugged look of the rockers. The parkas were to the mods what the leather jacket was to the rockers, a practical solution to allow them to ride freely, secure from the elements, while a hallmark of their style. But while the rockers rode motorcycles, the modernists rode scooters. They dressed differently, listened to different music, and had a different philosophy on life. As the mods and rockers both rose to prominence in the early 1960s, a fierce animosity developed between the two groups, fueled by their contrasting styles, values, and lifestyles. For mods, the rockers' rough appearance and heavy bikes symbolized an outdated way of thinking, while rockers viewed mods as superficial and effeminate. This cultural rivalry became a defining aspect of the era, marking a clear line between two distinct visions of youth, identity, and rebellion in post-war Britain. The rockers initially outnumbered and outsized the mods, but that would not last. Over time, the mods began to grow in popularity, and they eventually outnumbered the rockers. The desire for the validation of identity began. The media initially looked favorably upon the mods, writing articles about their attire choices, which inspired other young people to follow suit. However, that did not last.
You and your friends mods or rockers?
Well, we're mods when we're dressed up, you know.
Yeah. And at the evening past 5, I'm taking records. This sounds a groovy high five. I say yeah, yeah. Take you home with me. Put you in my house. Boom, boom. I'm feeling love the way you walk.
I can't tell you. I can't repeat your heart name.
How long have you lived in Cheltenham?
Most of my life.
Well, what's the mod setup here?
Well, there's more greasers, really.
Let's come across to you. Why do you go around with mods?
Well, I prefer them.
You what?
I prefer them. I wouldn't like to be seen around with one of those scruffy lads.
Do you like them because they dress properly and all this
Yes.
sort of thing? How long have you been a rocker?
About 4 years.
What does this business of rocker really stand for? You know, why do you classify yourselves into mods and rockers?
Well, it's just motorcyclists, really.
Yeah. Well, this is really the way it all starts.
Yeah.
What do you do when you get together, such as in a place like this? You talk about motorcycling and what?
Yeah, talk about motorcycles, go for rides.
What sort of bike have you got yourself?
Norton Dominator.
The only thing I can say, I say yeah, yeah. That's what I say yeah, yeah.
When Brian Epstein began managing the Beatles, he saw the potential to transform their image to polished pop icons. At the time, the band was heavily influenced by the rebellious leather-clad style they had adopted during their time in Hamburg, Germany, where photographer Astrid Kirchherr helped shape their early aesthetic. Epstein's influence in guiding the Beatles toward a mod-inspired look played a crucial role in their rise to global fame, helping to bridge the gap between rock and roll's rebellious spirit and the modern, stylish sensibility that appealed to the masses. When the Beatles landed in the US, they seemed to be able to control the media with their sense of humor. Their quick wit, smart style, and incredible music seemed to put the world at their feet. Soon everything British becomes cool. Music and fashion and everything hip was coming out of England, and the mods ruled the world.
What will the well-dressed mod be wearing this whit weekend?
He'll either be wearing a white hipster slacks or blue hipster slacks, with either a cycling shirt, which is up here and block stripes across there, mainly with white ground or a blue ground, or on the other hand be wearing a t-shirt with a large emblem on front or on back. This is what the well-dressed mod will be wearing this weekend.
Dave Clark, would you consider yourself a trendsetter in mod clothing?
Well, it's very hard to say, really. I think anybody that's in the public eye, I suppose people take notice of. But whether you set trends or not, well, that's up for the people to answer themselves, you know.
What is the trend at the moment?
I think the modern trend is going very big, which I'm all for.
The jackets are waisted like
yeah,
this?
you get either 3 or 4 button waisted jackets, vents at the backs. Well, hats are coming in quite a lot, but myself, I still wear Cuban heel boots, you know, which are still the rage, but...
What do you think of the mods?
I think they're great.
First got involved with the mod movement in early '64. All the mods that we kind of copied in the early days came out of Streatham and Lewisham, around that area, which I think that's the kind of, I think that was the kind of birthplace of the mods. You know, guys were wearing herringbone trousers with huge flares and very, very different looking. Tweed, a lot of tweed. But then, of course, it was very difficult to find good gear. The Parker was in, the Scooter was in. That was the main unit. I'd always been a teddy boy. You know, at heart I was a real rocker, but I liked all kinds of music. So to me, it was just a uniform. But then it was pointed out to us that this was a bandwagon that was going to roll, and all the music that they liked was the music that we liked, but they didn't have anyone in this country doing it for them. So we became mods overnight. I mean, into the barber with long hair and out as a mod. That really was. It was hysterically funny. It was just amazing because the fashions would change so quickly.
Several musicians in the 1960s embraced the mod look and infused their music with the vibrant energy and style of the subculture, helping to shape the mod movement's cultural impact. Bands such as the Kinks had a hit song, Dedicated Follower of Fashion, celebrated the obsession with style and fashion, blending sharp wit with a catchy British pop sound. Rod Stewart's early years included a stint as a vocalist with Long John Baldry and the Hoochie Coochie Men, where he honed his R&B chops, aligning with the mod taste for authentic soulful music. The Who, another quintessential mod band, captured the rebellious energy of the mods with hits like My Generation and I Can't Explain, while also sporting the mod look, complete with tailored suits, Union Jack patterns and Royal Air Force roundels. The Dave Clark Five, though more pop-oriented, also adopted elements of mod style and performed energetic, beat-driven music that resonated with the mod ethos. These bands not only dressed the part but also reflected the mod lifestyle through their music, blending rock, R&B and pop influences to create a sound that was both modern and unmistakably British, leaving an enduring mark on the music and fashion of the era. In the early 1960s, a number of British musicians, including Pete Townshend of The Who, were art students whose creative pursuits extended beyond music and into the visual arts. This background deeply influenced their approach to both their music and their image, leading them to draw inspiration from the burgeoning pop art movement. The Who in particular began to explore the bold, colourful and ironic style of pop artists like Andy Warhol, incorporating these elements into their visual identity and performances. Townsend and his bandmates embraced pop art's celebration of consumer culture, blending it with a distinctly British twist. This influence was evident in The Who's iconic album covers, stage designs and the way they dressed, with graphic symbols like the Union Jack and Royal Air Force roundel becoming as integral to their identity as their music. By integrating pop art's vibrant aesthetic into their work, The Who not only paid homage to contemporary art movements, but also helped elevate rock music into an expressive, multi-dimensional art form that was both visually and sonically impactful, resonating with the youthful spirit of the mod movement. Carnaby Street in London became a central hub for mods in the 1960s, offering an array of boutique shops that catered to their unique sense of style. Musicians and fans alike flocked to this vibrant street to find the latest in mod fashion, with many of the era's most popular bands, like The Who and the Small Faces, frequenting its iconic stores. As the mod subculture flourished throughout the early 1960s, it gradually evolved into what became known as swinging London, a broader cultural phenomenon that encompassed fashion, music, art, and an exuberant lifestyle. By the mid-1960s, the vibrant energy of the mods had fused with the rising influence of pop art, youth culture, and a newfound sense of British identity that celebrated creativity and innovation. Carnaby Street, once a mod hotspot, became an epicenter for swinging London, drawing in tourists, celebrities and fashionistas eager to embrace the latest trends. The mod emphasis on style, individuality and nightlife laid the groundwork for this new era, leading to an explosion of colourful patterns and experimental fashion trends. Bands that began as mod icons like The Who and the Kinks evolved their music to reflect the experimental sounds of the time, while designers like Mary Quant popularised the miniskirt and revolutionised women's fashion. Swinging London became a global symbol of youth, freedom and modernity, transforming the mod movement's urban sophistication into a broader celebration of culture and setting the stage for the countercultural revolution that would define the late 1960s. As the late 1960s approached, the original mod movement began to fade, with many mods drawn to the emerging hippie culture and its emphasis on peace, love and psychedelia. The clean-cut, tailored look of the mods gave way to the free-flowing styles of the counterculture, while the hard-edged hard mods evolved into early skinheads. By the end of the decade, the mod scene had largely dissipated, seemingly relegated to history. However, the 1970s saw a mod revival that rekindled interest in the sharp style, music and rebellious spirit of the original movement. This revival was fueled in part by bands like The Jam, who embraced mod fashion and musical influences, and by the release of Quadrophenia, The Who's rock opera, and the subsequent 1979 film adaptation. Quadrophenia, which follows the story of Jimmy, a young mod navigating the turbulence of the 1960s, became a cult classic and a defining piece of mod lore. The film portrayed the iconic clashes between mods and rockers. The success of Quadrophenia fueled a renewed fascination with mod culture, leading to another wave of young people adopting the mod look and lifestyle and firmly cementing the legacy of the mods in popular culture as both a symbol of youthful rebellion and a unique chapter in the story of 20th century Britain. Their love for city life, with its fast pace and vibrant social scenes, has carried over into today's urban cultures, where style, music, and nightlife are still highly valued. Mods were culturally curious, embracing diverse musical genres like American R&B, ska, and soul. This openness to different cultures and influences persists today, as young people frequently explore a range of global music styles, fashion trends, and subcultural elements. Mods were known for customizing their scooters, clothing, and even record collections. This hands-on approach to creating a personal style continues to influence modern DIY culture, where people take pride in curating and customizing their belongings. Mods preferred unique or high-quality items that set them apart. This mindset aligns with today's interest in vintage clothing and niche music collections where quality and uniqueness are highly valued. The mod subculture ruled when the greatest creative movement in modern history began. We have much to learn from the early mods, their obstacles, and the high standards and freedom to live for the day. If you're going to enjoy your life, you might as well dress for the occasion.
Were you and your friends mods or rockers?
Well, we're mods when we're dressed up, you know.
Yeah,
Mods.
What caused all this trouble yesterday?
Boredom.
Take you home with me, put you in my house. Boom, boom. Oh, tell me. I love the way you walk. I'm crazy about your walk.
The best things in life are free, but you can give them to the birds and bees. I see the girl with the diamond ring. She knows how to shake that thing. I can't tell you. I can't reveal her name until I say that you need me. Say you need me. You'll always be mine. Always be mine. Busy in the head now. Feel good. Things you say will maybe they're true. They seek him here. They seek him there. People try to put us to down. Talking about my generation. Just because we get around. Talking about